Hey friends, SGT here with an urgent precious metals update with our good friend Andy Hoffman from Miles Franklin. Andy, I have a couple things to say right off the bat, but first, welcome back.
Well, thanks for having me. I'm going to have a very sore throat by the end of the day, I assure you.
I bet you are. Now, let's just recap here. We've seen record American Silver Eagle sales, world records, all-time records in January, in February. March should have been a record, but they fudged the numbers. April will surely be another record for demand for physical Silver Eagles from the U.S. Mint. We see the Rio Tinto mine in Utah collapsing. I have some news about that I want to share with you. We've got the COMEX inventories being absolutely gutted. We see that the RSI now shows that gold is the most oversold it's been in 31 years, according to Zero Hedge. And Miles Franklin had its biggest day in 24 years on Friday. So we see the demand for physical, off the charts, but in a world where reality is being warped by the criminal cartel, reality just doesn't matter, does it, Andy?
Right, and look, we were talking about the record sales of Eagles in the first quarter of the year, and that's without a crisis. This is just, the government trying to paper over the real world with money printing and market manipulation and propaganda, and yet people are seeing right through it and buying the metal to the point where we had a modest shortage in December and then a much bigger one in January. Right now, pretty much all silver product is gone or having major supply delays. In fact, you mentioned at Miles Franklin, we had our busiest day in terms of number of orders Friday ever in 24 years, but today I'm told that it's much busier than it was then. So the point is that this end game, as we keep overusing that term, is starting now, where you have an actual break of the physical and paper markets. We saw it to an extent in 2008 and again in 2011, one on the downside and one on the upside. But in those cases, those were self-correcting mechanisms. The cartel had the powers that be had the ability to print money and kind of kick the can down the road a bit more, but they're not going to have the ability to do that now. And I fear that this is the final breaking of the market, where if you don't have your bullion, you're never going to get it.
Before we talk about that Rio Tinto Kennecott mine, you wrote a blurb about that, and I know it's a big, giant, huge deal, and the market's not recognizing it. But I did a video the other night in which I talked about the fact that these criminals will give us no safe harbor. They will give us no respite against their crimes. There is no shelter, because in the environment that we see now, with Japan on the verge of hyperinflation, with the Eurozone melting down, with money being stolen from account holders in Cyprus, this is the time in world history in which we should see silver and gold running to the moon. But the very opposite is happening. And it's funny, because now that we can stand back with hindsight being 2020, it's easy to say, God, we should have seen this coming.
We talked about Cyprus before, about how I believe it was purposely done, because there's just simply no way that anyone could possibly come out and say, yeah, we're going to confiscate people's deposits, especially in these weaker countries, and not believe that the same thing's not going to happen across all of Europe, and Greece, Spain, Italy, France, you name it. Just like trying to smash the paper, gold and silver markets at a time where the fundamentals are more bullish than at any time I've ever seen before, let alone when there's literally nothing going on. They don't even have a crisis to cover up anymore. They are literally just taking it down. To me, it's purposeful, and it's what they're doing is creating an end game, whatever that may be. They know that people are only going to buy when the prices go lower. You were saying, well, they're trying to discourage sentiment. Yeah, maybe in the paper PM investments, where people lose all their money, but not in the protecting your wealth area, because every single time we've had a big smash in the paper price, we've had massive demand. And as I said, right now, we're seeing the largest demand we've ever had. Let alone, look at any online site, and you'll see that most of our competitors are out of supply in the silver business, in the silver market, and pretty soon they'll be out of gold.
The way I'm looking at this thing is that the cartel is doing a marvelous job keeping the sheeple asleep.
Well, look, I just wrote a piece called The Financial Holy Grail Revisited, and the first piece, which was the Financial Grail of the Holy World, of the monetary world, is that physical gold and silver are real money and everything else is not. The second one, the piece that I just wrote, is saying the difference between the paper PM investments and the real stuff is people buy the real stuff when the price goes down, and they sell the paper stuff when it goes down. And so, yeah, they've discouraged people in the biggest way. Heck, you look at those closed-end bullion funds like CEF and the Sprott funds, they are all trading at big discounts right now, as I expected that they would. I wrote about that 2 or 3 weeks ago. And as for mining stocks, this is, they are literally have fallen to or pretty close to the 2008 lows. And I think that the mining industry is permanently destroyed. There is no capital left. I believe 3/4 of all the world's mining companies will be bankrupt within 6 to 12 months. And the big companies can't compete anymore because right now at these prices, we're below the cost of production, let alone when you have big problems like at the Kennecott mine. People just don't understand how big this mine is. You can see it from outer space. It's the biggest copper mine in the world. It produces 16% of U.S. silver and 7% of U.S. gold. And let's face it, if you look at the pictures of that and think about the environmental ramifications, I don't think that thing will ever produce again. And let alone the Pascua-Lama project, which was the biggest oncoming gold-silver project, which looks like it'll be tied up in, let's call it, probate for years and years. So there's no supply out there coming, and there's no supply in the retail world right now. And obviously something very big is going on behind the scenes that, will reveal itself very soon.
Yeah, and, well, Andy, as you know, we've been out ahead of that Pascua-Lama project, that Barrick Mine Pascua-Lama project, and the fraud going on there for a very long time. In fact, we just did that interview with Jorge Lapandilla not very long ago in which he really laid out all the facts in that case as he understands them to be. But, of course, you've been ahead of that forever talking about Barrick, right?
You mean, per my rant, evil personified? It's Barrick Gold, who... Barrick Gold is to gold mining what J.P. Morgan is to banking. I mean, they have been a cancer that has destroyed the mining business for a decade, and they were, a government-supported entity. In fact, an admitted partner of J.P. Morgan in keeping the prices down. And now they are being abandoned by the government, and you can see what's happening with their stock price. I truly believe that they have plenty of hedges out there of gold and silver that they expected to sell from Pascua-Lama, and it turns out they may not even own Pascua-Lama. So there's a good chance that Barrick Gold, which is now the largest mining company in the world, the largest gold miner, will go bankrupt. And if it does, if anyone thinks that those mines that they have are not going to take years to be, brought back to the current levels of production, they haven't been around. I was in the oil business for 10 years. I was an oil field service analyst, and I saw what happened when those companies fell apart and merged. It takes years to consolidate and get production going at higher levels.
Well, let's turn our attention back to this Rio Tinto Kennecott mine. Let me share this with you. I have a source. I can give you his first name. It's Mike, but I think he'd like me to protect his last name. But he says, I'm a 27-year-plus veteran in the mining industry, and he wrote to me about the collapse of what he calls the Bingham Canyon mine, which is Rio Tinto's Kennecott, and he says, I have a connection in senior management with Hecla Mining in Moulin, Idaho at the Lucky Friday mine. He says, while reports have stated that they are open and running full operations, the reports do not tell what full production is. Currently, full, quote-unquote, allowed production is a single heading that produces approximately 55 ounces per 8-hour shift under the restrictions of the Mine Safety and Health Administration. And he says that's an extreme underweight production from the 500,000 ounces of annual production under normal operating conditions. What's your take on what's up with that Rio Tinto mine? Because the media has not really reported on it at all.
Well, you mentioned Lucky Friday mine, which is owned by Hecla, and Lucky Friday is one of the oldest silver mines, primary silver mines in America. It's in Idaho. It had several mine collapses over the past 2 or 3 years. It was shut down. They keep trying to start up, and I wouldn't be surprised if they're producing a lot less, as you say, than they had planned to. And as for the Rio Tinto mine, look, I mean, I toured the mine 2 years ago. It's one of the largest structures you'll ever see. It's certainly the biggest open pit mine in the world, or maybe it's the second biggest. Maybe the Grasberg in Indonesia is bigger. But when you look at what's happened there, it's pretty clear that from an environmental approval standpoint, and the fact that they're saying that they're feeling seismic shifts under it, I don't think that's ever going to produce again. And, that production has to be made up for. The company's going to report all kinds of propaganda. I already saw an article that said there's some activity going on there, and then you see in the fine print it said, but it really has nothing to do with mining. It's just some stuff that was already there. And so they'll do their best, but this is a catastrophic situation for Rio Tinto. which already has had all kinds of problems over the past 5 years, Rio Tinto being one of the two largest mining companies in the world.
On that note, you said that they provided 16% of the annual silver production here in this country. This contact of mine says that he was speaking with another person from a large dealer, and he was told that the Sunshine Mint in Coeur d'Alene has ceased production of its generic rounds and has dedicated all production to the U.S. Mint due to silver shortage. So this thing just could not be more real, and I'm really pretty shocked that the powers that be, the U.S. Mint and other mints around the planet, are still able to meet this level of demand. When you're talking about millions of ounces of physical a month, it's difficult just to mint that. It's hard to make it.
Right. Well, it's always hard to tell exactly what's going on with mints, especially when they're government mints. I mean, you mentioned the fudged March Silver Eagle numbers. Clearly, they moved a whole bunch of the production that was in March, which would have made it one of the biggest months ever, into April. So you never know. But the fact is, across the board, we're seeing increasing premiums and delivery delays, and in some products, we're just plain sold out. So, it's only a matter of time before they're not going to be able to pretend that they're doing what they say they're doing, because we're just not going to have the supply. At these prices, at silver in the 23s, again, that's 25-30% below the cost of production. There's going to be no silver in short order. I cannot believe that if the prices are here for another week, that the mint will still be, this one or the Canadian Mint or any of the others, are going to be producing any silver.
Well, Andy, actually, that's my follow-up question for you is if demand is now really outstripping supply, I guess my question is this: why would the mines that are producing silver even sell it into the market at 23? Because when I was poking around looking for pricing on the internet last night, Provident, APMEX, some of your competitors were still $7 over spot. I guess Gainesville was letting some generic rounds go at 80 cents over spot. But how long can we reasonably expect that supply to last? Because if I was the operator of a mine, I would put the brakes on selling my product at a loss.
Well, a couple of things. One, you have to be very careful about anyone who's selling online product. That's not assuring you that they have the product. And I'm not going to name any specific names, but if you look at Tolving, for instance, okay, I'm not naming them in a bad way. I'm saying if you look at Tolving, which is one of the biggest sellers out there, they are sold out of everything. Every single product they have in the silver, except for the 10-ounce, 100-ounce bars, is sold out. So if you're going to tell me, not you, but if anyone's going to tell me that any of the other guys are going to say that they have product, I don't believe it. They are clearly going to be rationing or having major delivery time delays if the biggest players are out of supply. And I know, for instance, with us, that our delivery days are stretching out dramatically. So, anytime someone says that they have it, doesn't necessarily mean they have it. Now, as for, why would the mines continue to sell at $23? The problem is with mines is, for one, if you're with silver, because it's a byproduct mostly, it's not even the primary issue of the contract that the mines have with the smelters. They do have supply contracts. They are, just like, for instance, Silver Wheaton has bought the production of these of certain mines for $3 an ounce. That's a contract that the seller has to deliver it to them at $3 an ounce, just like the mine has to deliver to the smelter at the contracted price. They can renegotiate at some point, but they are kind of stuck. They, unless they had escalators and whatever the unescalators to make it go down, they're pretty much screwed. And the fact is that at $23, most miners are going to go bankrupt. I mean, when I say most, I mean 99% of the silver mines in the world at $23 aren't going to be profitable. And at $1,300 gold, I would venture it's going to be in the 90s too. First of all, you have all those numbers, now the gold companies are starting to put out their all-in cash costs because everyone knew that they were underestimating the costs, which include exploration, development, permitting, all that kind of stuff. And even the biggest miners in the world, like Barrick and Newmont and Goldcorp, which have the lowest cost mines, are showing costs that are very, very close to the current price. And those numbers are ignoring a whole bunch of other costs as well. So my guess is that these prices, no more than 5% of all producing precious metal mines are making a profit. And then you have to look at the base metal products. I mean, base metal prices are falling pretty sharply. If you talk about silver, zinc prices are down to 80 cents right now. Zinc inventories are 5 times what they were in 2008 when the price fell sharply. So there's a good chance that you're going to see some shutdowns in base metal mines as the global economy gets weaker. So, I mean, you talk about supply; it's a black hole coming from the retail side, from the wholesale side.
Andy, let me read something to you that I think is if you may have already read it, and if you haven't, it'll just make you laugh. But it's from Paul Krugman today in the New York Times, who is cheerfully gloating as he spews more propaganda. The name of the article is "Gold Does Not Glitter," and I just want to read you this one paragraph. He says, "In fact, by and large, the gold bug response to each failed prediction has been to claim that evil government officials are hiding the truth. Interest rates are low? That's because the Fed is suppressing them. How can it do that year after year without causing runaway inflation? Oh, actually, we have runaway inflation, but the BLS is faking the numbers. And independent measures."
I got to cut you off.
I know.
Because honestly, I can't even listen to guys like this. I'm not going to dignify answers to morons. These guys are shills. Their job is to work like Warren Buffett, to just say what the government wants, and the guy's a loser. I mean, he's a Nobel laureate who has no grasp at all of economics, so there's not much more to say there.
Yeah, but you're missing my point. My point is this, right? He concludes his article by saying, sure enough, the response of many gold bugs to the latest events has been to cry conspiracy, right? That's a portion of his article. My point is that it's amazing when we see the mockingbird media and the shills that have sold their souls to work for the powers that be, how they can take truth and spin it into lies, right? And I'm getting really sick and tired of it, because you're an honest person. I'm an honest person. So many of us in this alt media sector, in the precious metals sector, are honest people trying to do the right thing, trying to help inform our brothers and sisters before they get crushed by this New World Order globalist agenda, which is to leave us penniless, to take our guns from us, to leave us hungry, and I think ultimately to take our lives from us. And you got a guy like Krugman, who still has a platform in the New York Times to spew this kind of nonsense. Well, why does he have that? Because he's a mockingbird, and the New York Times is mockingbird media. All I'm trying to say is that I think it gets pretty long in the tooth, it gets pretty old, and it's pretty disgusting to see the way this power structure, this system, has taken truth and spun it on its head time and time again, from 9/11 to honest money and anywhere else you look.
That's right. I mean, basically we're just it's life imitating art. Between 1984 and Atlas Shrugged, everything you just said is exactly what's happening. And Paul Krugman is. I wish I had my cast list of Atlas Shrugged. I remember they had this economist who was the exact same way, or he actually worked for the Ministry of Science, and his job was to basically say that whatever is correct about science is incorrect. Like Henry Reardon's liquid steel. So, you just got to fight more and more of this mainstream media, which is kind of merged into the evil troika of Washington, Wall Street, and the press. And there's only a handful of us out there who get it, and that's why, when all is said and done, only 2 or 3% of the population is going to have protected themselves from this, just like what happened to John Galt and his crew. I just get so angry when I hear Paul Krugman.
Oh, I know, and Jeffrey Christian too. I know.
I am not losing sleep over this. I am not worried and frustrated. I'm angry because you don't like these guys to, quote, win. But the fact is they're not winning because the system is falling apart, and the only reason they're doing what they're doing is because the situation is so dire. And all I can say is, look, to people, where do you want to hold your net worth? You've seen what's happened. Do you want to hold it in cash? Do you want to watch them hyperinflate it away? Do you want to hold it in stocks? Do you want to hold it in real estate, or do you want to hold it in coins? It's up to you. I know that the coins have outperformed, even after this, have outperformed pretty much every asset class for the past dozen years, and that they are now more undervalued and more invaluable than at any time in this 11 years. So I would say to people, stop worrying about the price. What matters is that you are protecting your assets with something of real value. In time, that value will come because, you think that it's going to stay down here forever? Of course it's going to go back up in value. And you'll feel protected. It's an insurance policy. It's not a speculative investment.
All right, Andy. Who do people call over there at Miles Franklin?
Call us at 800-822-8080. If you have any personal questions, email me, ahoffman@milesfranklin.com.
All right, Andy Hoffman, guys from Miles Franklin, Ranting Andy Hoffman, one of the best voices, brightest voices, and best writers in the space. Thanks so much for your time. We do appreciate it.
Always a pleasure.
All right, buddy. Take care.